Everyone blamed me before the flight, but when the gate agent said one sentence, the entire airport went silent. My name is Cassidy. I'm 27 years old, and this is how I turned their betrayal into my blueprint for power. Before I continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The terminal lights reflected off the waxed floor, turning everything into a blur of glare and motion. The hum of the air vents merged with rolling suitcases and overlapping announcements, creating a constant metallic heartbeat. Families moved in clusters, their voices layered with the sound of excitement and exhaustion. Kids clutched Happy Meals, leaving trails of fry salt on their fingers. A man barked into a Bluetooth headset while dragging a scuffed Samsonite, its wheels clicking over the seams of the tile. Somewhere nearby, a woman laughed too loudly, the sound swallowed by the buzz of travel. The smell of espresso and cinnamon pretzels wrapped around the air so tightly it felt like a film on my skin. I stood at gate C18, gripping 3 passports so firmly that the edges cut faint lines into my palm. My carry-on sat beside me, perfectly upright, zipper tabs aligned, boarding passes tucked into the front sleeve like a soldier's badge. The clock above the gate pulsed between minutes, each tick marking the thin patience I had left. Mom adjusted her scarf, lips pursed like she'd swallowed something sour. "You always do this, Cassidy. Always. If this trip turns into a disaster, it'll be because of you." She didn't whisper. She never whispered. Her voice carried, sharp enough to slice through the crowd noise. Dad joined in, predictably. She gets defensive. That's her pattern. Can't handle a little responsibility without making a mess. His tone had that performative disappointment he used on waiters who got his order wrong. 2 college girls in sorority hoodies turned to look at us, then quickly looked away, pretending they hadn't heard. My cheeks burned, not from embarrassment, but from restraint. I didn't flinch, didn't yell, didn't defend myself. Every muscle in my body stayed still, trained, waiting. Because I knew what was about to happen. I knew what I had already set in motion. The gate screen refreshed with a soft electronic ding. The blue letters shifted from final check-in to now boarding. They kept talking, kept blaming. And I let them. Because I also knew what the gate agent was about to say. Let me rewind. This wasn't our first family trip, but it was the first I'd paid for. Not that they ever asked. After Mom's surgery last fall, she announced over coffee that she deserved a vacation. Dad agreed, loudly, during Thanksgiving dinner, waving his fork like a gavel. They joked about Hawaii but sighed that flights were ridiculously expensive this time of year. I sat across from them at that dinner, watching them scrape cranberry jelly off paper plates, listening to the television hum behind them. I knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't ask directly. They never did. They planted seeds and waited for me to feel guilty enough to water them. I work in digital marketing. Not glamorous, but steady. I'd saved every bonus check, every freelance dollar, every tax refund. My Chase Sapphire miles could cover 3 round trips to Honolulu, and the hotel points from endless corporate travel had been waiting like a secret I could finally use. So I offered, and they accepted like royalty. No thank you, no offer to pay for meals, just a smug text from Dad later that night. "Send the itinerary when you're done booking. We'll handle the packing." I spent hours comparing flight times, reading hotel reviews, making sure the seats had extra legroom, 2 checked bags, preferred boarding. I even upgraded the suite so Mom wouldn't complain about low water pressure like that dump in Daytona. For a brief second, I believed that maybe this trip would soften something between us. Maybe gratitude could replace that constant current of criticism. But somewhere between the booking and the boarding, I stopped being the adult daughter trying to give them a good memory and became the family scapegoat again. It started small. Mom frowned at the email confirmation because I didn't choose the better spa resort she'd seen on Instagram. Dad accused me of micromanaging when I reminded them the airport parking would fill up fast. They said I was controlling, ungrateful, too intense. I smiled through it, for days, because I was waiting for the final act. Now, here it was. Gate C18. Mom stepped ahead first, dragging her roller bag behind her like a weapon on wheels. Dad followed, gesturing at me to hurry up, as though I were the one making them late. The gate agent smiled politely. "Good afternoon. Can I see your boarding passes?" They handed them over with the confidence of people who believed the world bent for them. The scanner beeped once, then again. The agent's brow furrowed. "Just a moment. These seats were booked under someone else's account. I'll need the primary traveler to verify." Mom blinked. Her mouth twitched. Dad's voice rose immediately. "What does that mean?" "We're the passengers. We're flying." The agent kept her calm smile. "Yes, sir, but the booking was made through Cassidy Lee's account. We just need her verification." I stepped forward. "Hi, Cassidy Lee. ID ready." My voice was calm, flat, almost clinical. I slid my license across the counter and lifted my phone, already open to the United Airlines app. The blue glow lit my face. My name sat at the top beside the little gold star that marked my upgrade tier. Beneath it, the flight number, the seats, the payment confirmation, my name attached to every line. The agent compared the details and nodded. "Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Lee." Her tone changed slightly, warmer now, respectful. Mom's jaw moved, but no sound escaped. Dad turned a shade of red that crept up his neck like a rash. For the first time all morning, they were quiet. I didn't gloat, didn't explain. I simply took the passports from the counter, slid them neatly into my bag, and stepped through the gate. The boarding tunnel smelled faintly of jet fuel and recycled air. The floor vibrated under my shoes as luggage thumped against metal walls. I could hear the chatter of passengers ahead, the rustle of boarding passes, the static soft voice of the flight attendant greeting everyone. I didn't look back. But I felt it. The pause, the silence, the weight of realization pressing against their backs. I imagined Mom frozen there, clutching her scarf, Dad frowning as if logic itself had betrayed him. They blamed me for ruining the trip. So I let them learn who made it possible. I could hear them before they even reached the jet bridge, the shuffle of hurried footsteps, the clipped whispers, the sharp rhythm of Mom's voice, trying to sound composed, but cracking at the edges the way it always did when embarrassment hit her. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking, my shoes pressing softly against the rubber matting, until the tunnel opened into the warm amber light of the cabin. The air hit me, pressurized, faintly chemical, mixed with coconut-scented hand lotion and that sterile metallic tang of recycled oxygen. The overhead bins clacked open and shut like distant dominoes falling. People wrestled with bags that never quite fit. Flight attendants smiled through the chaos, pointing, guiding, counting. My pulse finally slowed. I found my seat, 10A, window, extra legroom. The kind of seat that felt like a small reward for years of flying to places that blurred together. 3 years of work trips to Chicago, Denver, and that one miserable week in Austin when I lived off conference coffee and hotel mints. I slipped my bag under the seat in front of me, the fabric brushing against my ankle. Then I sat, exhaled, tried to let the hum of the engines fill the silence I'd been holding inside all morning, and then they appeared. Mom froze in the aisle like she'd seen a ghost. Her roller bag blocked traffic. "You upgraded yourself?" Her voice cut through the cabin, bright and sharp, a tone designed to wound. Heads turned. Not all at once, but enough to make me feel the burn of other people's eyes. Dad leaned in, his jaw flexing, his whisper more of a growl. "You could have told us. We're cramped back there by the bathrooms." I kept my tone steady. These were the seats miles could cover. All three weren't available in this section. Dad's laugh came out flat and cold. "You always make it about you." And there it was. The script. The same one we'd been reading from for years. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The flight attendant stepped up with a professional smile. "Hi, folks. We'll need to keep the aisle clear. Seats 23E and 23F are toward the rear." Dad didn't move. Mom hesitated, hovering beside me, waiting for me to fold. I could see it in her face, the flicker of expectation, the look that said, "Go on, Cassidy. Do the right thing." The familiar moment where I'd cave, apologize, surrender the thing I'd earned just to keep the peace. But peace was never what they wanted. I looked up at her. Calm. "Have a good flight." Her lips parted, trembling with that practiced heartbreak expression, half sorrow, half accusation. She took a step back, eyes glistening just enough to draw sympathy from whoever happened to be watching. Then she turned, tugging Dad with her, both of them disappearing down the aisle in a rustle of frustration. When they were gone, I finally let my shoulders drop. The air seemed lighter somehow. People think walking away from family feels explosive, but mostly, it's quiet. Like unbuttoning a coat you've worn for too many winters, realizing only then how heavy it was. The plane filled with the low hum of boarding announcements and the shuffle of bags sliding into bins. A baby whimpered 2 rows up, the sound thin and tired. The cabin lights dimmed to that dusky orange that always makes people softer, quieter. I pressed my forehead lightly against the window, watching the rain streaks on the glass melt into each other as the engines began to spin. That's when the memories came. Not by choice, just how silence works. It leaves space for everything you've tried to ignore. When I was 13, Mom forgot to pick me up from softball practice. I waited for 2 hours on the metal bleachers, legs swinging, watching as the field lights flicked off one by one. Parents waved, kids ran laughing to their cars. I was the last. When her sedan finally rolled up, headlights cutting across the empty diamond, she didn't apologize. She scolded. "You know Thursdays are busy, Cassidy. Why didn't you remind me?" I didn't have a phone then. She knew that. When I was 16, Dad skipped my choir performance because he didn't want to fight downtown traffic. Later that night, he said I should plan events around his schedule if I wanted support. His schedule, his comfort, always the center. When I got my first job, assistant marketing coordinator at a mid-size agency, they congratulated me. Not out of pride, but relief. "Now you can help out," Dad said, tapping the kitchen counter with his beer can like it was a joke. Helping out meant paying for my own clothes, my own gas, my own textbooks. Helping out turned into picking up groceries, since you're already out. Helping out morphed into paying part of the electric bill for responsibility. Helping out became code for carry what we don't want to. And I did. For years. The seatbelt light chimed off. The cartwheels clicked softly down the aisle, plastic and metal, blending with the murmur of voices. The woman next to me, late 40s, travel pillow already looped around her neck, smiled gently. "Rough start to the trip?" "Family stuff," I said. Her smile widened just enough to show she understood. "Sometimes you have to love people from a distance." The words landed somewhere deep. I nodded, but didn't answer. Distance. I'd never given myself that before. Hawaii wasn't supposed to be distance. It was supposed to be peace. A gift. A chance to rewrite something broken. But somewhere between their entitlement and my exhaustion, I realized peace wasn't a destination you could buy, especially not for people who only saw your effort as obligation. I looked out the window. Clouds stretched like cotton pulled thin, glowing with sunlight from above. The sky was endless, layered in gold and blue. My reflection in the glass looked softer than I felt, tired but steady. The cart stopped beside us. "Something to drink?" "Ginger ale," I said. The flight attendant handed it over with a napkin, her nails perfectly manicured. The carbonation hissed as I opened it. I raised the plastic cup, felt the bubbles fizz against my tongue, and took a slow breath. My hands were steady. My heartbeat wasn't. Something inside me shifted, quiet but irreversible, like a door closing without sound. About an hour in, I checked my phone. The glow of the screen felt intrusive in the dim light. One new text. "Mom, we need to talk when we land." I almost laughed. The timing was predictable. Her messages always arrived right when I'd found calm. It wouldn't be a talk, of course. It never was. It would be a sermon disguised as concern, a reminder of how ungrateful I was, how I'd embarrassed them, how I'd made things harder than they needed to be. I locked the phone and turned it face down on the tray table. Outside, the sunlight had softened to a honey-colored shimmer. The ocean was somewhere far below us, a thin silver strip on the horizon. I stared at it, trying to imagine warmth without obligation. I wasn't afraid of that talk. Not anymore. Because I knew something they didn't. Something they'd never bothered to learn. When you book a trip with miles, when you upgrade seats, when you reserve rooms with reward points, everything is tied to the primary traveler, the hotel reservations, the rental car confirmations, the island excursions, the dinner reservations at the resort's beach terrace. Every detail of this dream trip existed under one name: mine. By the time we landed in Honolulu, their anger would already be loaded, ready to fire. I could practically hear Dad rehearsing his tone, Mom practicing her wounded sigh. But I wasn't the same daughter who used to brace for impact, because the truth doesn't always need your voice. Sometimes it stands there, quiet and undeniable, and does the talking for you. The wheels hit the runway with that familiar jolt, the one that shakes you awake, even if you were only pretending to sleep. The cabin hummed with a wave of motion, seatbelts clicking open, luggage shifting, phones lighting up like tiny constellations as people reconnected to their worlds. I felt the vibration in my pocket before I even looked. "Mom, meet us at baggage claim. We need to clear the air. Clear the air." Those words had a history. They always meant the same thing in my family. They talk. I listen. They accuse. I absorb. They walk away lighter. I walk away heavier. This time, I stayed seated until the aisle was empty. The woman who'd sat beside me the whole flight gave me a small, sympathetic smile. "Good luck with whatever that talk is." "Thank you," I said, and meant it. Strangers can be kind in ways family sometimes forgets to be. As I stepped off the plane, the first rush of Honolulu air hit me like a soft wave, humid, sweet with salt and plumeria. It clung to my skin and filled my lungs in a way that felt too gentle for the confrontation waiting beyond the gate. The terminal buzzed with greetings, reunions, and camera flashes. But near the baggage carousel, there they were. Dad stood stiff, arms crossed, the stance of a man who'd already decided how the conversation would go. Mom tapped her foot with sharp rhythm, her mouth drawn tight. Their suitcases passed by on the conveyor belt, circling again and again, untouched. Dad broke the silence first. "So, about earlier." Mom jumped in, her voice trembling with wounded pride. "You embarrassed us, Cassidy, in front of everyone." Her tone, thin and cracking, was the one that used to undo me. It carried years of training. Make her feel better, fix what's broken, apologize for existing. Not today. The gate agent did her job, I said. My voice didn't waver. Mom frowned. You could have handled it differently. You know how we look when things like that happen. I know exactly how things look, I said quietly. Dad snorted, eyes narrowing. So you think you're some kind of hero now? No, I replied. I think I paid for the trip. The silence that followed wasn't the ordinary kind. It landed like a weight. Real silence, the kind that has edges. Mom looked around, scanning the crowd as if embarrassment could still be salvaged by pretending we were invisible. But no one cared. A family laughed near the exit. A toddler chased a rolling duffel bag. Life went on. She finally exhaled through her nose. Fine. You paid for the tickets. So what? The hotel too, I said. Dad's jaw twitched, his face darkening. And the car, I added. Mom blinked rapidly like she could blink her way out of the truth. And the tours for tomorrow, I continued. They all require my ID at check-in. Dad's voice rose. Why would you set it up that way? Because that's how reward points work, I said. There's always a primary traveler. Mom's lips trembled. You should have warned us. I tried, I said, meeting her eyes. For years. That stopped her. Not because she understood, but because she didn't like the direction the conversation had taken. Dad folded his arms tighter. So what now? You want what? A thank you? No. I lifted my suitcase off the carousel, its wheels thudding against the tile. I want space. Mom's voice cracked. We came here as a family. You came here expecting me to carry everything? I said. Dad's tone hardened. You're overreacting. But I wasn't reacting at all. I was deciding. I booked us separate rooms, I said. Your reservation's linked to mine, but I already told the front desk you can check in with your own IDs. After that, do the trip your way. Mom's face twisted. What does that mean exactly? It means I'm done managing you, I said. Not the car, not the schedule, not the meals, not the apologies. The words hung in the humid air, steady and final. Dad looked away first. That was new. They didn't answer. They just turned, falling into the slow current of travelers heading toward the shuttle pickup. I stood there for a moment, watching their backs as they disappeared into the crowd. Then I turned in the opposite direction. The exit doors slid open with a rush of tropical air. The sky was the color of gold dust melting into blue. Taxi vans lined the curb, drivers leaning against their doors, calling out destinations. One waved at me. Taxi, miss? Yes, I said. He loaded my bag into the trunk and smiled in the mirror. Where to? Ala Moana, please. As we pulled away, I glanced back through the window. My parents were small now, two blurred silhouettes by the curb, framed by the glow of the terminal lights. Two people who once defined everything about me. Two people who didn't realize how much of me they'd already lost. The cab moved through the palm-lined streets, past murals, open-air cafes, and people laughing with leis draped around their necks. The world outside looked alive, unburdened, the kind of place that didn't ask you to earn its warmth. For the first time in years, my chest didn't feel tight. I could breathe without waiting for the next criticism to land. The hum of the tires on the asphalt felt like permission. At the hotel, the lobby smelled like fresh orchids and lemon polish. The clerk greeted me with a smile that was practiced but kind. Welcome, Ms. Lee. Your suite is ready. Ocean view. I nodded. Thank you. He handed over the key card. If you need anything, just let us know. As I took the elevator up, my reflection in the mirrored walls didn't look like someone who'd just walked away from her family. It looked like someone who had finally arrived somewhere she belonged. The door to my suite opened with a soft click. The room was bathed in the amber light of sunset spilling through wide glass doors. The ocean stretched out beyond the balcony, shimmering, infinite, alive. I stepped outside and let the warm air hit my face. Below, the water caught the fading sun and broke it into pieces of gold. I stood there a long time until my heartbeat slowed into something even and quiet. Then my phone buzzed. Mom, we got the room. We will talk tomorrow. I stared at the message until the words blurred. Then I locked the screen and set it face down. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. It was mine. The sky deepened to violet and city lights began to flicker on like fireflies. The faint laughter of strangers rose from the pool deck below, carried by the wind. For once, the sound didn't make me feel outside of something. It made me feel free. I realized then what this trip had really been about. Not escape, not revenge, not punishment. It was about release. I didn't ruin the trip. I stopped letting them ruin me. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.